purposes. And are you all ready for me to bring in the jurors so we can start with the opening statements?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's bring in the jury. I'll give them some instructions and we'll start with the opening statements. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I hope you had a wonderful extended weekend. Before we begin with the opening statements, I want to remind you of some of the instructions I gave you Thursday afternoon, the high points. Something first, most importantly, that I've repeated multiple times, the most important element of a fair trial is that the jury base its decision only on the evidence presented officially in the trial. Therefore, as you know, don't talk to anyone about the case, including your fellow jurors. Don't do any research about the case by any form whatsoever, electronic or otherwise, and avoid all media coverage of the case. Remember also a rule that I told you about, which is as the trial progresses, don't form any definite or fixed opinion about the merits of the case until you've heard all of the evidence, the arguments by the lawyers, and the instructions on the law from me. With regard to note-taking, you've been provided with a pen and pad to take notes should you wish. You're not required to take notes. Please remember, during the breaks, when I send you back into the jury room, leave your notepad on your chair and it will be there for you when you come back into the room, into the courtroom, and that also follows for the every day of court session. Of course, during deliberations, you'll be entitled to take your notes back with you to assist you during deliberations. We're about to begin with the opening statement. If you recall, on Thursday, I advised you of the importance of the opening statement. If you recall what I told you, what the lawyers say to you at this time is not evidence. This is not part of the evidentiary portion of the trial, but it's very important. The way I like to explain it to you is, if you could imagine, if we didn't do opening statements, we would just start with the state calling witnesses, and you would have no idea what this case is about. We have an adversarial system. Each side opposes the other, and there are things on both sides that they think are important. So it gives them an opportunity to prepare you for the evidentiary portion of the trial. It gives them an opportunity to tell you what evidence they think will be presented once we start hearing the evidence. And that's a huge advantage. Rather than you going into the trial cold with no idea what the case is about, now you will be able to have advance notice of what they believe you should be paying close attention to, and that will give you a tremendous advantage in all regards, but in particular at the end of the case when you hear their arguments reflecting on what the evidence was. With that, though, remember what they say is not evidence in that regard. And we start off with the state has the burden of proof, and they may begin with their opening statement. Mr. Cormier.
I have to do it, Eric. I have no other choice. I'm going to lose everything. If my wife finds out something like that, oh my God, bro, I'm going to lose everything. Bro, I have a spot. I have a spot. I have to find a spot where I'm going to dump her. I'll throw away all the clothes, or I'll burn them, or I'll wash them with Clorox. Those are the words from the defendant in this case on August 21st, 2018. The evidence will show you that Jose Soto-Escalera, the defendant in this case, he had a problem. He had a big problem. And he needed to find a way to get rid of it. He had no other choice in his eyes. And that problem that he had was the victim in this case, Tania Wise. On August 21st, Tania Wise was a mom. She was 38 weeks pregnant, and she had no idea that this defendant was carefully planning out her murder. You're going to learn that the defendant in this case, he worked for Waste Pro. He was a garbage truck driver, and he worked with his nephew on the garbage truck. And the reason we're going to know and hear how he planned out this murder is because he did it on the garbage truck while they're driving around, picking up trash, doing his route. But what the defendant didn't plan on is that it's all recorded. There's video, there's audio, and even though they talked in Spanish, everything is going to be translated in this case, and you're going to hear the defendant as he drives around on his trash route trying to figure out where he's going to get rid of her body, where he's going to leave 38-week pregnant Tania Wise for dead, how he's going to kill her. Let's go 2 days later. That was August 21st, 2018. Let's go to August 23rd. That's the date of the murder in this case. And it's a normal day for Jose. He's driving in his garbage truck and he's planning out a murder. He cannot let his wife know that he got another woman pregnant who's now 38 weeks. He's running out of time. She's getting ready to schedule a C-section. She's going to have this baby, and he cannot let that find out because he's going to lose everything. That's all he cares about. What's going to happen to him? Not that he's going to kill a 38-week-year-old pregnant mother. That doesn't concern him at all. And he's talking casually in this car to his nephew. You think I should choke her? Or would it be better if I just do a big blow and it's all over with really quick? And then he tells him, you know what? She's not the type of person that anyone's even going to look for. They're not even going to look for her. They're not going to worry about her. And you know what? If they don't find anything within the first 48 hours, they're never going to find anything. Well, despite the defendant's planning and discussion over and over again of where he's going to do it, which way he should do it, how he's going to commit this murder, he made some mistakes. And on August 23rd, you're going to hear from the victim in this case, Tania Wise. You're going to hear from her mother, Elizabeth Bedolla. She is helping Tania put her son to bed that night, and then Tania leaves the house. The last time she sees her daughter alive is sometime after 8 o'clock on August 23rd, 2018. She doesn't know exactly where her daughter's going. She thinks she's just going out for a little bit. Tania didn't have a car. She didn't have a way to go anywhere, and you'll learn through the recordings that the defendant, part of his plan was to lure her out, to get her out of the house, and then to take her somewhere to murder her. So that's August 23rd. That's the night of the murder. And you're going to learn the defendant, he goes, he picks her up, and then he takes her out to complete his plan. So fast forward to the next morning. It's August 24th, 2018. Tania Wise has been murdered. Christine Gabin is driving in St. Lucie County. The site of this murder is it's on a road called Russo Road. It's just north of Indrio. It's a little bit west of town. There's an intersection between Russo Road and Johnston Road. And it just so happens that this route is along the defendant's trash route. It's a spot that he passes, that he drives on his garbage truck route. But Christine Gabin, she's driving down that road that day, and on the side of Russo Road, she sees what she thinks is trash in a ditch, in the swale, on the side of the road. But when she looks closer, she realizes it's not trash. It's Tania Wise. So immediately she sees a body on the side of the road and she calls 911. St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office is going to respond out to the scene. One of the first officers, Deputy Gilkey, he gets there and he takes some photos of Tania as she is found the way that she is initially. You're going to hear that crime scene investigators, there's 3 different crime scene investigators that worked on this case: Donna Carmichael, Kayla Lim, and Janine Vasquez at the time, now Janine Hiller. They go out to the scene because now there's a dead body and they need to figure out what happened. So they go and they look at the body. Tania Wise is face down in the swale on the side of the road. There's still some water. She's wet, she's damp. They see some hair, loose hair around the area where her body's found, and she is completely face down. Eventually they turn her over. They can see that she has some injuries to both her head and to her neck, and that there is what appears to be vomit within the swale of where her face was laying down. They collect all the evidence at the scene. They document all the evidence at the scene. They take photographs, and Tania Wise is brought to the medical examiner's office to have an autopsy performed. So now we're on August 24th. She's been found. She's brought to the medical examiner's office, and the defendant is there, riding in his garbage truck again, as if nothing happened. And he's talking to his nephew again about what happened. And he's telling him, he says, yeah, I washed even though I had gloves on, I washed my hands with that brake cleaner. His nephew asked him, did you see, was there any blood? And he said, yeah, there's blood. It was all over the clothes. But I got rid of it. They're not going to find any evidence. And once again, he's talking in this truck. He doesn't know that she's been found at this point yet, but he's saying, no one's even going to look for her. She's the kind of person that runs away for a few days. I'm fine. He thinks he's in the clear. No one's going to find her. So that's August 24th. And what's going to happen is now law enforcement's going to start to work the case. They are going to figure out who knew her, how did they know her, when's the last time people saw Tania Wise, because they need to start gathering evidence. They need to figure out who she was with, who she saw, what could have happened to her. And they start to bring in people for interviews the next day on the 25th. And what also happens the next day on the 25th is her autopsy. And what you're going to learn what happened to Tania Wise is that she suffered 2 major injuries that could have caused her death. She was struck, and you're going to hear from Linda O'Neill, the medical examiner at the time, she was struck on the top of her head. And she suffered skull fractures, she suffered hematoma, edema, and that the cracks in her skull came all the way up to her orbital bones. Linda O'Neill will tell you that that was a significant blow that she took, and that it couldn't have been done with a fist. That it had to be done with some type of extremely hard object. The other injury that you're going to hear that Tania Wise sustained was a 19-centimeter cut across her neck. It comes from the front to the back, consistent with it, someone possibly standing behind her, and there's multiple cuts. There's 2 separate cuts, and the cuts were so deep, it went through her jugular vein and almost to her spinal cord. And you're gonna see photographs of that. And the reason those cuts are so deep and she's hitting the head so hard is because this defendant had to make sure she was gone. He planned it out, and he was worried that he was gonna get found out. He thought he was gonna lose everything. And his solution was to kill Tania Wise and Josiah Wise, which was gonna be the 38-week-old baby that she had that was getting ready to be born within the next couple of weeks. You're gonna hear that the sheriff's office continued to work on this case. They gathered evidence, and they eventually talked to the defendant in this case. He goes into the sheriff's office on August 25th, 2018 for an interview. And when he comes in, he drives in a silverish gray Dodge truck. Now what you're going to learn about this truck is that same day of the finding of the body or the same day of the murder on August 23rd, there's another individual by the name of William Mullen. William Mullen owned a pizza shop at the time, and he was driving on Russo Road in that area at about 11:30 at night. And he sees something that's odd to him. As he's driving down the road, he sees a silverish truck, meets the description of the defendant's truck. It has some fog lights on, and it's just sitting on the side of the road. He says he sees the truck, he pulls up, it turns its lights off, it turns its lights on, and then it drives off. And he thought that was kind of weird. So the next day, when he sees law enforcement there, he goes and calls 911 and says, hey, I saw this truck out right there where that body was found last night. And just so happens that the day that this defendant comes in to give an interview, he's driving a truck that matches that description, consistent with the truck that's seen right at the murder scene. Another piece of evidence that the sheriff's office says, you know what, it's starting to look like it's Jose Soto-Escalera. So he gives consent to search his car. Law enforcement, they swab his car that particular day, and then they talk to him. And when they talk to the defendant, you're going to hear his interview, you're going to listen to his words, and you can watch him. He comes in as if, despite what he just did, despite after cutting her throat twice and bashing in her head, he's surprised. He's sad. I can't believe this happened. I feel bad for her family. I hope you find who did this. I don't know anything about it. He minimizes his relationship with Tania Wise. He's like, yeah, I know her. We're not friends. She comes over. Her son plays with my son. They start to ask more questions. She was pregnant. Is there any reason that we're going to find out this is your child? Are we going to learn that this baby is yours? Nope. Not my child. That's not possible. I've never had sex with Tania Wise. That's not me. So obviously, law enforcement, there's a medical examiner, they're going to do a paternity test of this baby that Tania had. And they're going to look into that. But what they're also going to look at is they're going to start to look at phone records. They're going to look at calls. They're going to do search warrants. And that's exactly what is done in this case. After the 25th, they do a search warrant subsequent on the defendant's vehicle again on September 24th of 2018. And at that time, they use something, and it's called Blue Star, and it's a chemical that they spray inside of his truck. And if there's blood inside, it lights up blue in the dark. So they spray that, and sure enough, they look inside of his truck, and there's parts that are glowing. Evidence that there was blood in his truck. So what do? They cut out the carpet where they see some of that blood. They swab that, send that off also for DNA testing. So what you're going to hear about the DNA evidence in this case is that they took a lot of swabs and they tested a lot of stuff. But there's a couple things that are extremely important. And one of those is that they checked multiple people to see who could be the father of that child, and the 99.99%, it's the defendant. So not only did he kill Tania Wise, he killed his own son that she was 38 weeks pregnant with, because he didn't want his wife to find out that he had been with someone else. He cut her throat and bashed her head in knowing that possibly it was his child, but he did it anyways. Because he had planned it out, and he said, I have to do it, Eric. I have no other choice. You're gonna hear some additional evidence that even though that evening, he's gonna tell law enforcement what he did and where he went, and the cell phone evidence that's gonna be introduced in this case, the cell phone tower evidence, it's gonna show that's not correct. That's not where he was. The evidence is gonna put him out at the scene of the crime. It's gonna put him near that area where this crime occurred out on Russo Road. So, throughout the trial, listen to the evidence, use your common sense. But when you go back and you listen and you watch and you hear what is said on these recordings, and you consider what the facts are, that the fact that this was his child, and that he lied about it, and that he hid it, and that he then planned this murder for multiple days, and then he carried it out, at the end of this trial, you're gonna find the defendant guilty of both first-degree murder of Tania Wise and first-degree murder of an unborn child, because that's what the evidence is going to show. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Does the defense wish to make an opening statement at this time, Ms.
Yes,
Meek?
sir. Thank you.
Please do, thank you.
Unfortunately, the profession that Miss Wise was in, a dancer and an escort, brought her into contact with many unsavory characters. And what you will learn in the days following the discovery of her body. Law enforcement got DNA samples from many men, not just my client. They got a DNA sample from a gentleman by the name of Mark Burke, who she was involved with and was her longtime paramour and pimp. They got DNA from a person named Bradley Rodriguez Jr., who was also her longtime boyfriend, who had been kicked out of her mom's house because he was violent with Tania in front of her mother. They got DNA from a gentleman named Eric Alvarado, who is my client's nephew. And they got DNA from a person by the name of Giovanni Alvarado, who dropped Tania off on the night that she was murdered. You will also learn that Miss Wise had told Bradley Rodriguez Jr. that he was the father of her son. And you will learn that she also told Mark Burke that he was the father of her son. It was in this fraught situation that her untimely demise occurred. And the judge is going to tell you, when we talked about it during jury selection, that reasonable doubt can come from the evidence, lack of evidence, and conflicts in the evidence. I'd ask that you use a discerning ear and eye during the course of this trial and listen to not only the evidence that you see and hear, but the evidence that you won't see and that you won't hear. And I have no doubt that at the close of the evidence, you'll have no other alternative but to find my client not guilty of both charges. Thank you.
Thank you, attorneys. We now begin with the evidentiary portion of the trial, and the state may call its first witness.
Yes.